and it's 5 o'clock Eastern. And today we're going to talk about another near-death experience. And it's a very exciting one. It's talking about one that I was given to, written down by a son on the near-death experience of his father. Now I have all of these, the ones I've been talking about lately. They're either in one of my two books, and this is in this book, The Spirit World Talks to Us, 12 Accounts from Near Death and Other Experiences, in which I take the doctrine of Spiritism and I read and I analyze people's near-death experiences and say what happened behind the scenes. Everyone has their own experiences, although there are always um, central themes. The themes are a lot in common with other people with near-death experiences. They have previous life reviews. They see relatives who have died in the past come and greet them. And I say, how has this happened? How do people know about it? Where do they go? Why is the spirit world doing this to them? Why are they telling them what they're telling them? All that is explained by Spiritism. It's very exciting. So I encourage everyone first, please subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, please share, give us a thumbs up. It all helps us spread the doctrine of Spiritism. So we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Vernell's NDE. And as I said before, let me just show this very quickly to everyone. This is what the doctrine of Spiritism is based upon. Now, there's been a lot of literature since then. Allan Kardec actually wrote 5 books, but this is the first one in the 1850s where he codified Spiritism. He organized different mediums throughout Europe and asked the same questions to different mediums and didn't codify it in the Spirits book unless he got similar or the same answers. So this isn't just one spirit telling us that spirit's philosophy of the world, because even as Allan Kardec points out, you can't trust just one spirit. In many spirits you can't trust at all because they're lower spirits. And he, in his book, another great book, the Medium's book, he tells you how you can differentiate between low and higher spirits. A lot of times low spirits come and they try to act like they know what they're talking about, but they don't. They are as almost as ignorant as we are here on Earth. So there's a lot you have to be careful about when you trust people as they're interpreting, just one spirit. So Allan Kardec knew that he had to do a whole panoply of spirits. And of course, after Allan Kardec, there's Leon Denis, Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco still alive, Yvonne Pereira, and others who have written or have been mediums and written about messages from spirits, and Reverend G. Vallon, which I base my series of 3 books, telling you all about heaven and below, what you are as a spirit, and how the spirit world guides us. So, those will be in the description below. So let's get started on Vernell's NDE. It's very exciting. Now, I got this. It was sent to me in an email. So a son wrote an account of what his father told him about his near-death experience. And the son sent it to me, emailed it to me. And the father since passed away. The NDE was not complicated, and it followed the theme of many other NDEs, near-death experiences. But I recorded here to demonstrate how there have been people who have had life-changing spiritual episodes who didn't write about their near-death experience, didn't proselytize it to others, and generally didn't share their journey to the other side, except within a small family circle. This is why the internet's been so important to us, because this has probably been the norm, right? Someone had a near-death experience, and they talked to the small family circle, maybe people within their town or their general circle of friends, and they all said, "No, I think Uncle Tom or Aunt Edna, had this weird experience but she was in a coma or she was out of it and doesn't know what she's talking about because it doesn't jive to what we're taught in the Templar Church or wherever religion they belong to. It doesn't fit with that, and therefore we can dismiss it. And of course, the person eventually probably didn't talk about it and dismissed it themselves and tried not to think about it. But with the internet, now we're seeing that there are themes, recurring themes. People have seen things that one cannot explain and seen, parts of the future that one cannot explain. And this is very exciting because then people write their stories and they share it and they go, oh, well, maybe my near-death experience is not so unique and other people's had the same thing. So that's why the internet, a lot of bad things about the internet, but a lot of good things. So here's the story that the son's father told him. Now, Vernell told his son about his near-death experience. It happened to him in the 1980s. And this is what his father said. He said he first became aware of being above his body, looking down at the doctors and staff, trying to revive him after a massive heart attack. Although fascinated, he stated his attention was immediately drawn to a gentle pulling sensation as he became aware of being in the bluish-gray hallway or tunnel. He compared it to what it might look like if you flew through a rain cloud or thunderstorm. He felt no fear, only a sense of freedom and a peculiar warmth, which he noticed seemed to be coming from a light at the end of the hall or tunnel, which he said gave him a great sense of peace. He became aware of being in a field. It was very beautiful, seemingly endless, and surrounded by other fields, rivers, streams, trees, flowers, birds, and he wondered if this was some type of garden like Eden in the Bible. He was raised a fundamentalist Christian. He then became aware of a presence to his right. He looked and saw his mother, who had passed away many years before. She was like his guide for much of the remaining experience. He noticed that with his mother was another being, which he thought to be an angel, a bright light being to his left. So, as in other accounts, someone just made a comment. Yes, well, thank you, Chameleon. It said, so grateful that she discovered Spiritism. That's wonderful. That's what we're here for, is for people to discover Spiritism. Because Spiritism tells you why you're here on Earth. And it doesn't make what heaven is fuzzy, right? All the other kind of doctrines, religions is always kind of fuzzy. What really happens to me? Spiritism tells you. Now, let's get back to Vernell. So there's a lot of things in here that Vernell sees, and in fact, it was all completely normal. He saw exactly what he should have been seen. So, as in other accounts, Vernell, in the act of dying, felt himself free of his physical body. His spirit detached from that cumbersome container and floated up to a better world, a world free of bad intentions, stress, envy, and hate. Instead, he experienced a vibrant nature. A feeling of harmony swept over him. He had returned to where he came from. Now, how did he get out of his body? What came out of his body? So let's explore that for a second. And let me bring this here. Okay. So, what are we composed of? What happened to him? So he was on an operating table. He had a massive heart attack. So his body's this way, right? His body's on the table. But what are we actually composed of? We're composed of a spirit, a perispirit, and a body. Now, the spirit is that logical construct that is our personality and our character. The perispirit attaches from the spirit to the body, and the perispirit covers the body like a invisible diving suit, and it permeates our body and it connects to every cell. And that is why when the perispirit finally disconnects from the body, then that's when your body starts decomposing. Now, interestingly enough, is the perispirit, when you dream or you have an out-of-body experience, you go into your spirit body and you wander the universe or wherever you're wandering, but you're always connected by this long silvery cord. And actually, that long silvery cord was talked about in the Bible, and I actually have a video on that. And also, other people seen that long silvery cord of, I saw this long cord behind me, and I didn't know what it was. Well, that's your connection to your body, and it can go on infinitely. has the spirit world is a logical construct, and therefore that cord can go anywhere. It was interesting. I remember when I was younger, and Shirley MacLaine was all this well-known spiritualist, and I always thought, oh, she didn't know what she was talking about. And of course, she's mostly right. And then there was one movie she made, and she talked about the fact that she had this out-of-body experience, and she went up and she saw this long silvery cord. And I said, oh, yep, she knows. She is completely truthful. She's correct in what she saw, because that cord attached. Her spirit was rising, and yet that cord still attached to her body. And this is something that many people know and understand. So let me continue on with Vernon. Now, the other thing is when he spotted his mother, she had made a transition out of her body, years before. Now she was there to greet him. And it was, and the spirit world does this so you feel comfortable about who you're with, because you're right out of your body. It's a bit of a shock, right? Dying, which is just as much as a shock as being born. And so they have people there to say, oh, I know this person. Then you feel more comfortable right away. He also said he knows a brilliant white light being to his left. Well, when he saw that, which he took to be an angel. Now, Spiritism explains what Vernell sensed. High spirits are bright, not because they emanate light, right? They're bright because they reflect light. And what is that? What they reflect? They reflect the love that is around and inside them, right? The total environment of the spirit world is really an environment of love. That's why so many people have NDEs, and they say, well, and even as Vernell said, it was this beautiful place. It felt good, right? And other people said, well, I don't want to go back. And they have to yeah, you have to go back, and here's why. And they tell you, your wife or your husband or your son and daughter or family, whatever, needs you, and you have a duty. And they say, okay, I'll go back. But it's hard because it's such a environment of love. So that's why, he didn't want to come back. So, but as I talk about in my book, Heaven and Below, and also how you get in the spirits, is you when you first come to heaven, like the first levels, you're not as bright, or even if you're on the lower zone, you're not very bright. But as you go higher and higher, is you become brighter, because you become more energy and less matter, and therefore, and you become a very much nicer, wonderful person, right? Our ideal pure spirit is Jesus Christ, and that is what we're trying to achieve, is that state. Of course, that will take who knows how many hundreds of thousands of years, but that's kind of our ideal. And so as you go higher and higher, you'll be a more brighter spirit. Now, so let's say you're Vernell and you see this bright spirit. Now, if this bright spirit that he saw next to his angel, if someone from the same level came and saw that spirit, that person, he or she, would not see something bright. They just see a normal person, our normal spirit. So, once you're in that level, everything looks normal to you. But when you're below, they look very bright. And of course, that's how the law of affinity works too, is that when you pass over, you go to the level that you need to go into heaven, let's say. If you try to go to a higher level in heaven, it's like too bright, too uncomfortable for you. And if let's say you're at this level, so you can go down all the way down to the dark abyss, right, which is like a type of purgatory under the crust of the earth. You can go down as much as you want. You can roam all around those, the different, circles of the lower zone and below that, and circles of heaven below you. But you can't go up because it's too alien to you. It's uncomfortable. That's how the law of affinity works, right? Like to like, but you can go down. So that's why Vernell saw this bright light, and that's why people think there's angels, right? Because they see this fuzziness that looks like wings, right? Because there's all this brightness. So of course, that's our picture of an angel. They have wings. Now, After recognizing his mother and her high spirit companion, he looked down and noticed a fiery place. Now, Vernell was brought up to be a fundamentalist Christian, as his son told us. Hence, he had preconceived ideas about heaven and hell. Therefore, when he peered into the flames, he saw this. I'll read what his son wrote. Slightly beneath them, he saw a very large fire. The angel pointed in the direction of the fire, so he looked closer. He noticed the flames were rolling, cresting, just like waves on the ocean, and realized he was looking at a lake of fire. Curious as to whether or not this was hell, he looked for people in the flames. He saw no people, but did see monstrous, grotesque looking beings he took to be demons. So, what did he actually see? Spiritism tells us. So, the higher spirit in there allowed Vernell to see down into the lower zones. And of course, he kind of saw what his mind thought he was going to see, but he couldn't see people. He saw what he saw to be grotesque looking beings. And he said, they're demons. Well, he didn't see demons. What he actually saw was people who became what they thought of themselves. He saw people like us, or people who are spiritually immature, I should say, people that had passed over from their physical life who had not learned the path to the light, that love and fraternity was to be cherished and exercised more than greed and envy, that for doing for others is to be preferred over taking. Again, this is part of the law of affinity, the process set by divine laws of the supreme intelligence places people together in like groups with similar characteristics and beliefs. Hell, what Spiritism calls it, the dark abyss, is only a temporary place. It's not for eternity. For those who have self-selected their destination within it, and they are given time and experiences to choose a higher road. Now, the dark abyss, or what Vernell saw, isn't a mass of eternal flame or an ongoing series of torture chambers. It's actually organized. It's brought together by the very people who most of us would never want to associate with or place ourselves under their direction. In the book Liberation, the spirit Andre Louise is told how hell is structured. So before I talk about how hell is structured, I just want you to prepare is that there's so many mundane aspects of heaven and the lower zone and the dark abyss, or what some people call like a type of purgatory. It's temporary. And it's mundane because it's organized kind of the way we are organized. And why should that be strange to us? Heaven is a more perfect than earth. And as we come to earth, we organize how we felt we were in the spirit life, which is our true life, the life we live in the vast majority of our immortal existence. So let's talk about how hell is structured as told in the book Liberation by Andre Louise. I'll quote, "It is hard for a lot of people to understand the intelligent regimentation of evil spirits. Nevertheless, it's logical and natural. If we are still a long ways from holiness, in spite of the lofty purposes that have been guiding us, what can be said about miserable brothers and sisters who have willingly let themselves be caught in the web of ignorance and wickedness? They haven't grasped the fact that there is a region that is higher than the physical sphere, to which they are still bound by strong ties. Since they are entangled in forces of a low vibrational level, they cannot grasp the beauty of the higher life, and as fragile, sick mentalities bow down in humiliation, the spirits of impiety impose their rule on them. They organize them in large communities and guide them on the dark foundations of hatred and quiet desperation. They organize veritable cities that house huge phalanxes of souls who, ashamed of themselves, flee before any manifestation of the divine light. Children of rebellion and darkness gather there by the thousands, seeking self-preservation and supporting one another." Andre also describes it's like a Asiatic city was 300 years ago with that was Andre's vision of it. It was dark, dirty. There's slaves pulling people around. There's no children, of course. People who look, they may not even know themselves they look this way, but they look of how bad they feel, and that's why you see the grotesque monsters. And that's why I think a lot of it is, which I'll talk about in a minute. So Vernell saw what he thought hell was like. He wasn't ready to see it as it is. The demons he detected, I'll repeat once again, hideous human-like objects that are a favorite of any horror film, are, like the characters in the movie, normal souls who have been transformed in our real world by clever makeup and masks, in the other world by their own deeds and thought. Now, again, in the book Liberation, there is a scene. I'll talk about this transformation of why people look the way they do in these lower regions. And this was witnessed by the spirit Andre Louise, where a woman is on trial in a courtroom in hell, purgatory. The judge, a former Catholic pope who rejected heaven because he wasn't honored there according to his desires, so therefore he descended to the dark abyss to become a magistrate of the recently passed, who appeared in his dark domain. So, to set the scene up for you, these are stories that Andre Louise witnessed. He was in this, for the newly departed who went down, didn't go up. Even they have their own judge, and they decide where those people are going to be, right? Look, it's amazing. Hell is organized, heaven's organized, and how does the spirit world fight evil? They fight evil with evil. So if you're bound to the earth and you're a criminal and you're going down there, well, you know what? Other criminals are going to be in charge of you, and you can decide for yourself, do you like being there or not? So he's in this big room, and he's saying, so the judge, who used to be a Catholic pope, who he didn't have any humility, evidently, says, come here. And then I'm reading from the book now. It says this woman was there. She was looking hypnotized, and she said that Andre said the poor wretch obeyed the order, and she emerged from the crowd and placed herself under the forceful rays of his intention. And then the judge says, confess. And he was aware, right, of the passive being he was addressing. And the poor woman hit her breast, and she says, forgive me, oh my God. And then Andre Louis says that like she was under the power of some mysterious drug that made her expose her innermost self to all the people in the crowd. She spoke in a halting voice. This is what she said. She goes, I killed 4 innocent little children, and I hired the murder of my unbearable husband. But my crime is a living monster. It persecuted me while I was in the physical body. I tried to run from it by every means possible, but it was useless. And the more I tried to down my wretchedness in drinking for pleasure, the more I wallowed in the mire of my own self. And then Andre says, suddenly, appearing to experience the interference of loathsome memories, she said, I want wine, pleasure. And then the judge says, how can prayers and tears liberate such a human beast? Then he started looking right at her, focusing his energy on her. And he says, she has condemned herself. She is nothing but a she-wolf, a wolf. And as he repeated those words, as if trying to persuade her to feel like an animal, the woman actually began to change. She started thinking, oh, I am a wolf. And she saw that her mouth twisted, her neck curved spontaneously forward, and her eyes changed in their sockets, and her face took on a wolf-like look. And Andre says, in that display of power, I was obviously witnessing the effect of hypnotism on her paraspiritual body. So then Andre's team leader, who was right there with him, says, remorse is, of course, a blessing that leads us to make amends, but it's also a breach through which one creditor demands payment. Hardness congeals our sensibility for a certain amount of time, and yet a time always comes when remorse opens our mental life to the jolts of our own emissions coming back to us. So what he was explaining as Andre was watching this scene, that the murderous woman one day would find her way back to redemption, while for the time being, until she found the strength to repair herself, she would appear misshapen to all who viewed her. So if Vernell saw her through the bright flames of the fire, he would have seen more of a werewolf type creature, a creature not fully human and not a wolf, not a demon, but a woman who had performed malicious acts and was now paying a terrible price. And in fact, I think this is why how the whole myth of the werewolf came is people saw these things as they wandered in their sleep or they had visions of these, these misshapen poor human souls who were hopefully temporarily there, why they were, in looking into the other world. So, of course, Vernell didn't see the woman who transformed herself into a wolf-like creature. He saw something more disturbing. Then he saw, I'll quote, he saw his then wife and 2 sons walking towards the flames. Now, no other information was given about Vernell's first wife and their 2 sons, but I am confident that what he witnessed was a sign, a warning of what could be if his family stayed on their present course. It doesn't take overall evil intentions to live in the lower zone or the dark abyss when one's life on earth is complete. It can just entail a real selfishness, a deep tie to material goods, and just a thirst for more toys that you want, and an unwillingness to look beyond oneself to the good of others. And unfortunately, that's almost our culture now, is it not? If we adhere to the rules of our society, where accumulation of wealth and objects are more important than an aura of love and fraternity, where a complete rejection of acknowledging any supreme moral authority is demanded, or you are negatively labeled, is enough to bind you to the earth and blind you to the possibility of a loving heaven above. And of course, acts of love and charity must come from the heart. Because public displays of charity are meaningless. Of course, we see those all the time, for they are meant to draw attention. It's what we call virtue signaling now. A famous 18th century medium, Emanuel Swedenborg, was a precursor to Allan Kardec. He visited heaven and the lower zones around the earth. And this is what he writes about acts of love and charity from the heart. He says, if the thought and intent are good, then the deeds and works are good. But if the thought and intent are evil, then the deeds and works are evil, even though they may look alike in outward form. So, if we learn anything from Spiritism, is that all we really are, is the sum total of our thoughts and memories from the distant past until this moment. We are our personality, our character, and all of our experiences. What we take nothing else with us, because any material object eventually decays and disappears, while our immortal spirit remains. We will still be around when our sun burns out and the earth is in complete darkness. So Swedenborg gives examples of what he means. This is what he says. Take, for example, behaving honestly and fairly with an associate. One person can behave honestly and fairly with someone else in order to seem honest and fair for the sake of self and to gain respect. Another person can do the same for the sake of worldly profit. A third for reward and credit. A fourth to curry friendship. A fifth out of fear of the law and loss of reputation and office. A sixth to enlist people in his or her cause, even if it is an evil one. A seventh in order to mislead, and others for still other reasons. Which I think is a great example by Emanuel Swedenborg. So the only basis of thought that should be the cause of behaving honestly and fairly is the love of what is true and fair. That's one of our reasons to be here on earth. We're here on earth and we're on a planet of atonement, meaning we pay for our past wrongs, and we learn through our predetermined trials and tribulations how not to do what we've done before. That's why when you go through tough times, you can be like me as before I learned Spiritism, that you can whine and complain. It doesn't do you any good. What you should do is say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Thank you, Lord, for showing me this lesson. I know it's not easy. It's easy for me to say. It's harder to do it. But once you get that mindset, you can do it. So let's talk more about when Vernell returns from his near-death experiences. This is what his son wrote. His attention was again pulled toward the light he had first seen. He knew the light was something divine, but saw no face and heard no sound, but did feel and what he described as a love beyond imagination. Another being appeared, which he took to be the Christ. This being did speak and said with a smile, "Welcome home, but it is not your time yet," and then seemed to give him some sort of blessing or impartation. He was then taken by the hand by his mother, who also said, "It's not your time yet, son. Do you understand?" And he answered, "Well, I think so," and found himself back in the hall or tunnel. Then he became aware of his body as if a wave of electricity flowed from his head to toe, which he said was the spirit going back into his body. He was, of course, then revived. So, what really happened? Vernell was sent a message. He was allowed to glimpse what lay on the other side, the side where we shall spend the vast majority of our eternal life, the side where love reigns. Love reigns everything. It is so wonderful what people see. So, I hope this little interlude, our talk tonight helps you again understand more in the spirit world. And of course, if you like to learn more about people's near death experiences, read my book, The Spirit World Talks to Us 12 Accounts from Near Death and Other Experiences. You can get it on paperback or Kindle. And I encourage everyone to look into Spiritism. Also, you can read the Spirits book. I showed that before right here. You can order that on Amazon. It's also, you can look up Alan Kardec space PDF, and you can find it on PDF so you can read it for free on the internet. So I think, in summary, what the spirit world is telling us is that our lives are a sum total of what we have done before. And that's what people report. And it's the whole process, as Spiritism tells us, is basically reincarnation, right? We have many lives to learn many things. And what determines our life, our present life? What determined our present life? Well, what determined our present life is what we did in the previous life, where everything was recorded, everything in detail, our thoughts, everything. And they said, okay, this is what happened in this previous life, and maybe some things from the lives before that. This is what you need to go through in your present life for you to understand. Now, let me show this better here for a minute so you can see number 2. Now, in your current life, right, which is the results from your previous life determine the plan, the trials and episodes of your current life, right? But, which is very interesting, is now think of this life. You're actually working to create your future life. Your present life is recorded and will be used to determine your next life. So all these things make up how, your next life after life after life. And hopefully what happens is you improve in your present life and your next life. What is said, other spiritists have said what happens usually is, well, people will kind of go through like it's not like a straight sloping upward line. That usually doesn't work that way. They call it parking. You usually park yourself in life after life. Like you still have the same bad habits and the trials and tribulations given to you, and you're probably like me, you're just too stubborn to learn from them, right? Because I've been told it's interesting. When people always have these, people come and they say, "Oh, I've had this previous life experience, my past life experience, and I found all these things," and I've never asked for past life information, but I've been given it, and everything I've been given is all been negative, right? I've been in positions of power and I took advantage of people. I took money instead of helping people. I tortured my slaves. I cut their feet off so they couldn't escape. And I, found out during wars, I was a pretty efficient killing machine. Those are things I found out. So I must have been one of those people that just went life after life, not a nice person. I might have been amusing, but I wasn't a nice person, right? I absolutely, I wasn't. So, but somehow in this life, I found Spiritism through the trials and tribulations given to me. Maybe I finally opened my eyes And the spirit world, as they bring these things up, they know how to by using stimuli, which is your trials and tribulations, kind of like a stimuli of what's happening in the year 2020 here. It's March right now of this pandemic. It's a stimuli to make people think. So somehow, once you get to say, oh, you open your eyes and go, you know what? Being just living materialistically and being an SOB towards people isn't the way I want to be. It's better to follow the light. And so what happens is then you start going on this ramp, this hockey stick, this exponential line upwards. And so that's, if you can start in this life and just start studying Spiritism, reading about Spiritism, because then it really gives you an idea of why you're on earth, right? Why these things are happening to you. Why me? Why I'm a good person. Why are these bad things happening? And the answer is probably in your previous life, and you probably asked for these trials. I talk about it in my book, The Case for Reincarnation, how people in their own, and talking with their spirit mentors, they decide what body they want to be in. They decide what kind of trials they need. They said, no, I want to improve this. In fact, there was this great passage I talk about in the book, The Case for Reincarnation, where this woman said, and she was looking at a map of her body as how she was going to be in the physical world because they have everything planned out. And she goes, no. You've made me too beautiful. I'm not on earth to be beautiful. I'm on earth to learn certain spiritual lessons. And if I'm too beautiful, people are going to be, they're either going to treat me too well, and then other people are going to be too jealous of me. No, stop that. I want to be more, I want to be plainer. So very wise spirit she was she not? And of course, you know what happens to people, especially women who are just, drop dead gorgeous. A lot of people say, oh, they've got a great life. Well, they actually have a tough life. It's like what the spirits tell us is, what's the toughest trial? Well, the toughest trial is to be rich. Why? I want to be rich. Well, I think I was rich and powerful. And what did I do with it? I squandered it. I screwed it up completely. So when you're rich, everyone, kisses your know what, and you can do bad things and no one's going to say anything to you because they all want part of that money. So this is why, being beautiful or being very rich is actually a very tough trial, because you have to keep your humility and know that just because you're rich doesn't mean you're the smartest person and you can walk all over people. So that's why Spiritism, it also makes you, understand other people. And also it makes you feel sorry for people who other ones think, oh, look, that lucky person. You think to yourself, oh, I'm glad I'm not that person. So it gives you perspective on your own life and the life of those around you. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe, hit the bell, study Spiritism, look more. In fact, let me bring this up before I get off. I want to tell everyone they should go to this site if you want to know more about Spiritism. You go to spiritismstudy.org, and you can actually get, if you would like, you can schedule individual study sessions with Spiritists, and I'm on there too. People scheduled those with me, talk to me. There's no money. There's nothing you have to do, nothing you have to buy, none of that. It's just we'd be happy to talk to you about Spiritism. And what will happen is I'll get an email saying so-and-so wants a meeting on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I will write back, say, okay, I can do that. And do you want me to talk to you via WhatsApp or Skype or some other messaging system that you would like to use? And then we'll just kind of talk about the things you want to talk. I've talked to people saying, well, I want to talk to you because, I don't really believe in any of this. And I say, well, I understand. And what do you believe? And because, first of all, Spiritism encourages you, don't believe things because I say them. You should believe things because your own logical foundation that you've created, what you see, what you are, your facts, right? Not the facts of our culture, because they don't believe anything they can't see. That is what you should believe. So anyway, I just wanted to go. If you'd like to do that, please go to spiritismstudy.org. Anyway, I want to say, everyone, have a wonderful rest of the day, and God bless.